Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Walking the Bible Lands. I have a great privilege today to interview my new friend, Dr. Scott Stripling. Scott, thanks so much for taking a moment out of your day to be with us and to tell us a little bit about archaeology.
Well, Wayne, thank you for having me. And talking about archaeology is my favorite thing to do, so it was not a problem at all.
Well, I know that you are currently leading some digs at Shiloh, and I'm going to be doing an episode, a video episode for Walking the Bible Lands on Shiloh, and I thought this would be a great sort of bonus to have everybody hear you and hear a little bit about what it's like really in the trenches, literally, there at Shiloh. Now, you're not obviously in Israel now. Where do you normally live? What do you call home?
I am a Texan, and I live in Southwest Houston in a suburb called Richmond, and I serve as the provost at the Bible Seminary, which is in Katy, which is also Southwest Houston.
Oh, great.
And we have an archaeology program here, and excited about the things that we're doing, and that sort of all interfaces with our work at Shiloh through the Associates for Biblical Research.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, the Associates for Biblical Research, give us a 60-second summary of what that program is and how long it's been going and sort of its purpose.
Well, 40 years ago, ABR was formed to address the problem of eye. And the founder was David Livingston, and he was frustrated by Joseph Calloway's excavation at Tel, which they thought was the eye of Joshua's day. When Calloway announced that there was no evidence to support the Bible, in fact, it contradicted the Bible, Livingston said, I don't think there's a problem with the Bible. I think there's a problem with the site. Probably they got the wrong site. And so that led him to found ABR. We then excavated at Khirbet Nisya for a couple of decades, then at Khirbet El Makader for a couple of decades, and now we're starting season 3 at Shiloh.
That's great. Now, when you say I know what you mean, but some of my listeners may be more familiar with AI, is how sometimes people pronounce it that way. So.
Well, yes, I say Shiloh, you say Shiloh, and I go back and forth on both of them. So yeah, AI of Joshua 7 and 8, or I in Hebrew, or any other language other than English would be I.
Exactly.
And it means ruin or destruction.
Well, that's great. Thank you for the work that you're doing there. And I know particularly the Associates of Biblical Research and the great periodical that comes out, The Bible in Spade. I'm a subscriber to that, and I love it. And what I most love about it is its emphasis and its commitment to the Bible. The Bible not just as an option, as some other archaeology magazines that we all know focus on, as opposed to the Bible as the Word of God. So that's great.
Well, we're unique, and I tell you what, if any of your viewers are not a member of ABR, it's unbelievably cheap. I keep trying to get everybody to raise the price. It's $35 a year, and you get Bible in Spade 4 times a year for that.
That's right.
So, if you're not getting it, you really should.
That's good. Well, I've encouraged it in the past, but this will be another opportunity to remind everybody of that great opportunity. Well, let's talk a little bit about archaeology and Shiloh in particular. When we think about archaeology, a lot of people think of Indiana Jones. And that's probably not that accurate. But what is a day in the life of an archaeologist like? What's it like on a dig?
Okay, well, we operate under prolonged sleep deprivation because breakfast is served at 4, and so you can get up whenever you want. Before that, it doesn't take me very long to get going in the morning. But 4:15, I'm having breakfast. Our bus pulls out at 4:59. It's about in the morning a 30 to 35 minute drive to Shiloh, which is 20 miles north of Jerusalem. We stay in Jerusalem, near the old city, which is great for our volunteers when when they have any downtime, they can go explore the city and stuff. But we are then, it takes us a few minutes to get unloaded and organized for the day. But by 6 a.m., we are certainly trowels into the ground. So as the sun's coming up, we're going at it. And we work until 10:30, take a lunch break. which may sound strange to your listeners, but when you ate breakfast at 4:30, by 10:30 you're ready to eat. And we have excellent lunches delivered to the site that we get from the nearby community. And then we work until 1. The shofar blows at 1. And of course, we have sunscreens also to protect. But the reason we start very early is to get out of the sun as much as we can.
Sure.
And then we have sunscreens additionally. But when the shofar blows at 1, that's the signal to break everything down. And then it takes us maybe 45 minutes to wash all of our pottery and other finds from the day and set them out properly to dry so that the next day we can process them and read them.
Mm-hmm.
Volunteers then walk across the site. There's a nice visitor center there where they can get a cup of coffee or an ice cream, go to a nice restroom, whatever they want to do to freshen up. Bus picks them up a little after 2. You're back in Jerusalem by 3. And then the volunteers have a little bit of downtime. If they've got any energy, they can go do stuff. Supervisors have meetings and, so forth.
Yeah.
Dinner is 6. And every other night we have a lecture as well for everybody. And then you go to bed as soon as you can so that you can repeat the cycle. So that's the day.
Yeah. Well, it just sounds like a normal day, except you're just in a different time zone. You're starting at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's like when I was in high school, we framed houses. That was my summer job, and we'd do the same thing. In order to beat the heat, we'd start really early. Well, so here you are in Houston. How in the world do you develop an interest in archaeology, in Texas, other than Native American Indians? What got you into archaeology?
The Bible, Wayne, I grew up as a Bible reader, and in my teens became sort of obsessed with understanding the background of the biblical text.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like some of our gaps in understanding had to do with a lack of understanding the material culture. And so I began to just consume anything I could get my hands on archaeologically, from everything from BAR and books that they would recommend, and that kind of led to other things, which led to other things. But my interest was in the background of the text, and so that was a natural lead then into archaeology.
That's great. Isn't it funny how the Lord uses just a variety of ways to lead us down the path that He wants us to go?
It's fascinating. As I'm at this point in my life now at 56, I can see so many things that earlier in my life may have seemed like rabbit trails, but they're all essential to who I am and what I'm doing today.
Right. Which is great. I mean, in our lives right now, we can also just trust that whatever is going on, God's also using this now to prepare us for whatever's next.
Yes, that's right. Wayne, the conversation that we had the last couple of minutes about God and Bible and integrating that into archaeology, that's very much outside the mainstream, you understand, of Israeli archaeology. Because there's only a handful of dig directors in Israel that believe the Bible. And I'm one of those, fortunately. But it's funny when sometimes they comment that while Stripling and his team do rigorous scientific work, they lie outside the mainstream because they take the Bible as a serious document, which, of course, I plead guilty to.
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks for being guilty of that. That's we definitely appreciate and need more of your kind. Let me ask you a little bit about the ABR's findings at Shiloh. I know that there was a Danish excavation in the 20s, an Israeli expedition there in the 80s. How is what you're doing different than those earlier efforts?
Well, in some ways it's similar, but in other ways it's different. The Danish did 4 seasons or 3.5 seasons. Their dig director actually died during their last season in the field. We know the square where he became mortally ill. And so if anyone gives me a hard time, I threaten with sending them over to that square.
You're going to the square.
That's right, to work over there.
I like that.
I mean, let's face it, in the 1920s, they just simply did not have the specialized understanding that we have today. I mean, on my team, I have a team of specialists, a zooarchaeologist, an anthropologist, a numismatist, and it goes on and on and on with the specializations. So they didn't have that back then. And so we go back into the report sometimes and we calibrate and reclassify their findings. So Now, when Finkelstein excavated there in the 80s, he did excellent archaeological work. But even from the 80s to now, there's been a huge difference in what we're able to do with modern technology. So on the northern slope where we are, the Danish uncovered part of the massive fortification wall with the storage rooms on the inside, which are unique to Shiloh, by the way. And then Finkelstein did the same thing on the northeast slope. What we're doing now is we're opening up a much bigger area, because it's my view that in archaeology, we really have to open up large areas so that we properly understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We're prone to misinterpretation if we're just getting a square here and a square there. So we're opening up a very large area and then connecting with the work of the Danish on one side and the work of Finkelstein on the other side. We'll redo and reclean their areas, and then the whole northern slope will be opened up. And I think
Wow.
based on that, taking our data plus their data, then we can really draw some, I think, valid conclusions.
Well, speaking of conclusions, I've been to Shiloh a number of times, and I love it. It amazes me every time I'm there. It's so big. I just find myself walking from the parking lot all the way to the back, and it's like I didn't remember it was this far. But I'm curious. I remember when I was there back in the year 2000, 2001, as opposed to today. There's a lot of difference in the excavations, and one of the things in particular is a pretty hard and fast outline of where it's suggested the tabernacle was. Now, how do we know that that is likely or possibly the area where the tabernacle stood?
Okay, well, speaking of lying outside the mainstream, I don't necessarily share that enthusiasm with the fact that the tabernacle sat on the northern platform. It may have, but I'm not sure that that was the place for it. I've published an article that anyone could download from Bible and Spade on the 4 possible locations of the tabernacle at Shiloh. I'm sorry, go to digshiloh.org to our dig page, and they can download it there. The Danish felt like the tabernacle would have been on the summit of the tell.
Okay.
Finkelstein believed that if there was a tabernacle, that it would have been on the summit of the tell. That's also my viewpoint, is that the summit is the most likely location.
So basically the place where the tower is and the guest center today?
Immediately to the south of that tower is not perfectly on the apex of the tell.
Okay.
So there's some Byzantine buildings immediately to the south of that. Underneath those Byzantine structures, and we measured it. It fits perfectly. Although I read articles from many decades ago where people were saying it wouldn't fit on the summit, but we actually measured it, and it fits very, very nicely there. And plus the big bone deposit that we have there at Shiloh in Area D is immediately to the east of the summit. So if there was a sacrificial system operating there, that's a very logical bone dump, and it's a massive favisa. And if it was on the northern platform, they would have been carrying bones uphill, and then it's an illogical place to dump them.
Sure.
So it's my feeling that seasonally the tabernacle could have moved to different locations at Shiloh, and that the whole place should be seen as sacred. When the wind changes directions, if you're operating a sacrificial system, I mean, it could be overpowering the stench in that. And so by its very nature, the tabernacle is mobile. And so I see that it could have been on the northern platform. Seasonally, it could have been on the summit. Other times, it could have been on the southern approach.
Okay, well, that sort of brings me to a question and also an observation. Again, when I was there, I noticed a washing area, a nice concrete base and a structure that's clearly for washing. And this is something that your team put up. And so tell me maybe a little bit why you do that. And then secondly, if the tabernacle wasn't there on the northern side, why you set it up there and maybe at not another place?
Okay, excellent question. I worked for a couple of seasons in Jerusalem as a supervisor on the Temple Mount sifting project.
Great.
When I became a big believer in wet sifting and what small finds we can recover that are extremely important, inscriptional material, glyptic evidence, and so forth. So at Khirbet el Maqater, where we were excavating before, We had no water on site. And so just wet sifting was not an option for us. But I knew that we were missing a lot of material, as other archaeologists are as well. But when we came to Shiloh and we had water, I was committed to building a wet sifting station. It cost us about $15,000 to build that
Yeah.
station that you saw there. We had to erect a water tower and build, lay slabs and so forth. But we set up big tents around there too, and that becomes kind of our operational headquarters. What we do, Wayne, is a three-step process. We excavate in the square. The volunteers are under the supervision of a square supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And as they come across material, if it's important, we're taking elevations and so forth on it. Pottery is going into a pail that's been labeled. Then we take that material, the dirt that's been collected, it's dry sifted. And while it's being dry sifted, we're recovering things that we just simply didn't see in the square.
Sure.
It might be mosaic tiles, or it might be a coin, or maybe even something big like a scarab, but or pieces of pottery that are diagnostic. I mean, if it's a piece of a rim, we want to examine it. Then that material, here's step 3 that we're innovating, and now we're teaching others how to do. We then dump that sifted material that would have been tossed at that point. We dump it into a kind of a funnel tray that we've built, and it goes down into a colored bag, because each square has its own color, because we have to track where the material's coming from.
Right.
It's then tagged with the locus and pail, and then it's sent over to the wet sifting area. In the wet sift area, then they have hoses, and they wash the material, sort through it another time. And a coin covered in dirt, you know how hard that is to see. And although we do have metal detectors going around the site, but it's easy to miss.
Yeah.
We got 4 scarabs this last season, very important scarabs. 2 of them were from wet sifting.
Wow.
That means we missed it in the square, we missed it in the dry sift, and we were going to toss it out. And that's not just us. We're super careful.
Sure.
But that means that's going on everywhere. And one of those scarabs was extremely important.
So that sort of is, I guess, a new technology. Is there any other new technology that you're using to do your digs?
Yes, and we are eager to help others learn how to do the wet sifting and give them our blueprints, because it's going to revolutionize the way that I don't think that a decade from now, an archaeological dig will be able to justify operating without wet sifting their material. That's how important.
Right. It sounds so effective.
It is, and it's cost money, but I think we can't excavate without doing that. You'd be missing inscriptional evidence and key critical evidence. We also last year introduced 3D modeling. So we purchased new software so that when our drones, that's another technology, when our drone takes 1,000 pictures a day, then we can compress all of those pictures into our new software program, which then creates 3D models for us. So we no longer have to take square photographs, because the drone is so good that it can hover right over the square and give us perfect photos, which then can serve as square plans and drawings.
Yeah.
This year, we're introducing infrared and ultraviolet lighting into the field. So when we're examining our sherds at the pottery reading table, there's some things that with the naked eye we can't see. And so we have a little mini tent that will be set up, and we'll be experimenting with this ultraviolet and infrared technology this summer. So technology is a big part of what we're doing.
That's amazing. It's a lot different from, even 80 years ago when the Danes.
Oh, yes. Well, picture, for example, all of my square supervisors as of 3 years ago are now using iPads in the field. So there's not paper in the field.
Yeah.
So they're sharing data, and then that data from all the squares is coming onto my computer. I've got a large iPad, so I can see all the squares. So all that data is coming at me, and that enables me as the director to make data-driven decisions. So it's just not instinctive, like, oh, I feel that like we should go dig over here, but I'm actually making data-driven decisions in the field.
That's amazing. Well, how many seasons have you been at Shiloh, and how long do you plan to be there?
We have been there 2 seasons. We're preparing now actively for season 3, which will launch on May the 19th. If any of your listeners want to come, there's still time to sign up. They can go to digshiloh.org and find all the information there. They can come for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 5 weeks. And the longer they stay, the more of a price break that they get over that period of time. So this will be season 3. We're working for 5 weeks in the field. I'll actually be there for probably 7 or 8 weeks doing all the pre and post work as well. Now, how long will we be there? I get asked this question all the time. We'll certainly be there through 2022, which will be the celebration of the 100th anniversary of launching of archaeological work at Shiloh, because the Danish broke ground in 1922. So we're planning, and now the local community is really excited to do this with us, to partner with us, a big celebration in the year 2022. We'll call it Shiloh 2022, and we'll have special guests and speakers come, and politicians that will be a part of it and so forth. We'll then showcase our work. That whole northern area will be open by that point. So we'll showcase what we've done, and we've restored all of our walls. Plus, we're going back and we're reworking and restoring and stabilizing some of the earlier walls that the earlier digs had done as well. And at that point, I think in 2022, Wayne, we'll do an assessment of kind of where we are in our research goals, because it's such a big and amazing site. I mean, we could spend 20 years there.
It is, yeah.
So we'll assess where we are at that point and how long we plan to keep going. So for sure through 2022.
Shiloh is such a significant place, obviously in the Scripture, in the Old Testament. But when we think about, going to Israel, or even just as an archaeologist, what archaeology contributes to our spiritual lives. I mean, I think we can all attest to the fact that it corroborates a great sense of history. But I'd be interested in your perspective, Scott. What is archaeology? How does it help us spiritually, in addition to intellectually?
Okay, as we uncover the remains of these ancient cultures, biblical cultures or pagan cultures, whatever they might be, I think we connect with the past, and we ask ourselves those great questions like, who am I? What is my purpose? Why am I here? At Shiloh, I'm thinking Joshua was here, and Caleb was here, and Eli was here, and Samuel was here, and Hannah and Elkanah. And I mean, this is sacred soil where we're excavating.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I take it as the highest honor. Like Psalm 102:14 says, blessed are those who love your dust and cherish your stones. To us, this dust is sacred, and the faith lessons are endless.
They are.
Think about the coins. We excavate a lot of coins because Shiloh was inhabited in the New Testament period as well. But we've excavated over 1,400 coins, 1,400 coins.
Wow.
1,393 of them are bronze, 5 are silver, and 2 are gold. Now, those ratios are staggering. I mean, if you didn't know that until I told you right now, that comes as a shock, I would assume.
Yeah.
1,393 bronze, 2 gold, 5 silver. Now, with that knowledge, go back and read passages like Luke 15. Behold, there was a woman who had 10 silver coins. Now, we know things about that woman that we didn't know before. Why she lit a lamp, it couldn't wait until tomorrow. There was urgency. She notified the neighbors of a crisis. She moved the furniture. I mean, if it was a bronze coin, she would have probably just reached in the cushion of the couch and got one. The fact is that it was a silver coin, probably worth about 2 weeks' wages. And she had 10 of them. So that's 5 months' income. That's what your financial planner tells you should have in the bank. I mean, she actually had it. The kicker is that when we come to the end of Luke 15, the Son of Man came to seek and to save that which is lost. We are the coin in the story, and we are of great value to God.
Wow.
So that's an example of the type of spiritual insight that we get from excavation.
That's great. Yeah, that's a nice subtlety just by simple ratio of the amount of coins that you found. That's great. Well, Scott, I hope that I know that our the people watching, my friends on here at Walking the Bible Lands, have gotten some great insight from you as to what it's like to be an archaeologist, maybe a little bit of the significance of Shiloh. And I hope that some of them will invite family, friends, and even themselves to participate in a dig with you.
Okay, so if anyone watching is interested in studying archaeology, they can contact me, scott.stripling at thebibleseminary.org, or just thebibleseminary.org would get them there. And then digshiloh.org is our dig website. And we'd love to connect with them.
Great. Well, once again, Scott, thanks so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Wayne. Blessings.